We're about to hear from President Trump in the cabinet room, making a lot of comments on all the issues of the day. Let's listen in as he talks now about the Mueller report and other issues. Let's listen.
Trade's coming along well. We're having a big meeting this afternoon. I think you folks are going to be at it for a little while at least. The vice premier is here and lots of top people from China. They very much want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. It's got to be a good deal. It's got to be a good. It's got to be a great deal. It's got to be a great. Look, we've been losing over many years, $4, $5, $600 billion a year. We're losing a few years ago 200 routinely to China. We can't do that. We're going to turn it around. It's got to be a great deal. If it's not a great deal, we're not doing it. But it's going very well. Top officials are here, and we're very well along on the deal. It's a very complex deal. It's a very big deal. It's one of the biggest deals ever made, maybe the biggest deal ever made. It'll be a great deal for our farmers. Technology, intellectual property theft, everything is covered. There's not a thing that's not covered. We could have made a quickie, but we're in a very good position. Our economy is way up. China's not way up. And we're going to either make a very good deal or we're not going to make a deal at all. But I think it looks like the deal is moving along very nicely. So I think you're going to meet me and we're going to say hello to the media for a little while, sometime after 2 o'clock. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of good things are happening with Mexico. Mexico understands that we're going to close the border or I'm going to tariff the cars. I'll do one or the other. And you probably start off with the tariffs. That'll be a very powerful incentive because Mexico has the strongest immigration laws anywhere in the world. They don't have courts like we do. We have a stupid system of courts. It's the craziest thing in the world. We could be the only country that has it. You put a foot on the property. You put a foot into the United States. Congratulations. Go get Perry Mason to represent you. You end up with a court case. And then they release you and you come back 4 or 5 years later, but nobody comes back. 2% come back. The not so smart ones come back. It's the most ridiculous system anyone's ever seen. And we have catch and release and we have chain migration where somebody comes in and brings the whole family, bring them all, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins. The craziest thing I've ever seen, put in by Democrats. And the Democrats are going to straighten it out. And if they don't straighten it out, and I predicted this, I mean, I hate to see it, but at least I can say I was right. I told everybody, you have a national emergency at our border. And nobody even talks about drugs, the drugs that are flowing in. So for the last 4 days, and you actually have covered it to a very minor extent, Mexico has been capturing people and bringing them back to their countries at their southern border. They've been taking people under their very powerful laws. They have the right to do it, and they're bringing them back to where they came from. That's about 3 days now, I guess, frankly, since they heard I was going to close the border. But before I close the border, if Mexico, and we love Mexico, we love the country of Mexico, we have 2 problems. We have the fact that they allow people to pour in to our country. We have to stop them. Border Patrol's been incredible. ICE has been incredible. Law enforcement's been incredible. And the other problem is drugs. Massive amounts of, much of the drugs coming into our country come through the southern border in all different ways. Much of it where we don't have walls. The wall is under construction, by the way, large sections. We're going to be meeting, I think, on Friday at a piece of the wall that we've completed, a big piece. A lot of it's being built right now. A lot of it's being signed up right now by different contractors. It's moving along very nicely. But we need the wall. But we need lots of other things. So we need help from Mexico. If Mexico doesn't give the help, that's okay. We're going to tariff their cars coming into the United States. The other thing is because Mexico is such a big source of drugs, unfortunately, now we have China sending fentanyl to Mexico so it can be delivered into the United States. It's not acceptable. So the second aspect of it is, which you haven't heard before, is that if the drugs don't stop, Mexico can stop them if they want, we're going to tariff the cars. The cars are very big. And if that doesn't work, we're going to close the border. But I think that'll work. That's massive numbers of dollars. So if we don't see people apprehended and brought back to their countries, if we see these massive caravans coming up to our country right through Mexico, coming right through Mexico like nothing. Buses are even given to them. For the last 3 days, it hasn't happened since I said we're closing the border. The only thing, frankly, better but less drastic than closing the border is to tariff the cars coming in. And I will do it, just like you know I will do it. I don't play games. I'll do it. So we're doing it to stop people. We're going to give them a 1-year warning. And if the drugs don't stop or largely stop, we're going to put tariffs on Mexico and products, in particular cars. The whole ball game is cars. It's the big ball game. With many countries, it's cars. And if that doesn't stop the drugs, we close the border. Because Mexico last year, and over for many years, just like China, except China numbers are even bigger. And I don't blame China, and I don't blame Mexico if they can get away with it. I blame the people that used to sit in this seat, because they should have done something about it. And I'm not just talking about President Obama. I'm talking about many presidents. They should have done something about it. So if Mexico doesn't do what they can do very easily, apprehend these people coming in, and they can do it in a much more humane fashion, why should they walk up 2,000 miles and then be brought back? They can stop them right at their southern border, right where they come into Mexico. And they have unbelievable immigration laws where they have the right to do it, the most powerful in the world, as good as you can have. And they're going to do it. And if they don't do it, we're going to tax the cars. And if that doesn't work, we're going to close the borders. But we're also going to do something having to do with tariffs on drugs. Because not only are hundreds of thousands of lives a year being ruined in our country, but numbers of people are dying that you wouldn't believe. I mean, we'll lose 1 military personnel, and it's a front-page story. And yet we have 100,000 people. People don't even know the number. They say 77,000, they say 72,000. Any number they give, you can guarantee to raise it. And if the drugs don't stop, we're going to put tariffs on. It also costs our country at least $500 billion through our southern border, $500 billion. So we will put tariffs on if they don't apprehend, and ultimately we're going to give a period of time. But if in a year from now drugs continue to pour in, we're going to put tariffs on. Now, we have a deal, USMCA, it's all done. They're going to have to live with it, okay? They're going to have to live with it. I'm not trying to be unfair. They're going to have to live with it. The USMCA is a great deal for everybody. But this is more important to me than the USMCA. So they're going to have to live with it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Can you get the USMCA? John, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Whatever.
Please start moving.
Thank you.
Please move.
Thank you. Tell you one thing, it's a great deal. If they don't pass it, it's purely political. That's all. The USMCA, everybody wants to see it passed. But we'll see. Whatever they want to do is okay with me. Thank you.
Breaking news coming in overnight, an ICE bust in Texas. Nearly 300 illegal immigrants arrested in the largest operation there in a decade. Meanwhile, the Trump administration warning the system is completely overwhelmed as Secretary Nielsen heads down to the border as well. Here's one Border Patrol agent from last night.
Our resources are stretched. We have some significant help right now from our DOD partners, as well as the Coast Guard, FEMA, the Office of Field Operations, our customs officers, our ICE officers out there, but all of us are stretched awfully thin right now. We need to make some changes to the loopholes out there.
Especially
we need
your
to deter this traffic from actually crossing.
Let's bring in now Acting ICE Director Ron Vitiello. Ron, I really appreciate your time and having you come on the program this morning. Can you back up what we just heard there from the CBP officer? Is that the situation that is happening?
100%. It's an absolute crisis down there. It has humanitarian aspects. It has border security aspects. This policy can't continue. He talked about the overcrowding. The system's in a meltdown. It's just getting worse day by day.
We heard the Homeland Security Secretary describe this as a Cat 5 crisis situation. But what you hear are critics, mainly on the left, who say that this is a manufactured crisis and that this is being overworked and overdone to meet the needs of the president politically. How do you respond to that?
No, it's not a fair characterization. CBP reported yesterday they have over 12,000 people in custody. We're maxed out in ICE capacity. We're looking for more detention beds across the country. The system is overflowing. And an example, statistically, nearly 130,000 families released into the interior of the United States just since December of last year. So the system's in a meltdown. There's humanitarian aspects to this that can't continue, and the border security aspects. It's a terrible situation for the folks that are down there.
What do we do?
Well, we have to change the way the law is operationalized. Because of the Flores settlement and subsequent court rulings, we can't hold children or families during the pendency of their immigration cases. And if you don't do that, every time we've held people in my career, if they're in detention while they're going through proceedings, if they get asylum, we welcome them. If not, then they get removed. And if you do that, if you can cycle these cases fast enough, people will stop coming because there's no upside to it. But right now, if you bring your child to the border or you send your kid to the border, they come into the country, they're in custody for a very short time, and then they're released. And so that's encouraging others to do the same.
The president is heading down to the border tomorrow. We know Secretary Nielsen is already hitting a couple different spots. She'll end up meeting with the president in Calexico, obviously the border there in California. What will the president see when he gets there, and how could this change the conversation and the debate that is happening over immigration in this country right now? What would you like to see him do?
Well, he's going to see the resources that are in play to address this problem. I'm sure he'll get briefed by the secretary about how hard we're all working, all the tools that she's put in place, the agreement with Mexico that Secretary Nielsen got the Migrant Protection Protocol Accord with them. That'll help on this problem. Us with HHS writing a fix to Flores on the regulation side. That's not going to happen quickly, but that process is in order. But what he's going to see is this unbelievable flow at the border and no way for us to legally address it without Congress acting.
Ron, when it comes to the politics at play, we're coming up on an election season. Julian Castro, presidential candidate, is slamming those who have described this as a national emergency or a threat to our national security. Listen to this.
We need to reform our immigration system. I don't buy the BS that women and children and families coming to our southern border pose a national security threat to the United States of America. I don't believe that they are criminals. I don't believe that they should be treated as criminals.
Care to respond to that?
It's against the law to enter the country without being inspected. If you cross the border illegally, that's a crime in this country. We need to stop encouraging people with their children or to send their children to the border. There is a crisis down there. It's not manufactured. 12,000 people in custody at CBP right now. 48,000 adult detention beds being used across this country. People need to understand that this is a real problem, and we need to do something about it.
I want to finish up by asking you about this major bust in Texas. 300 illegal immigrants arrested. What is being described as the largest bust in a decade. Can you give us any more details and what you're learning on that?
Yeah, we're very appreciative of the work that HSI out of the Dallas office did in this worksite enforcement case. In order for us to have a secure border, in order for us to have an immigration system that has integrity, people who break the rules have to be held to account. And so in this case, lots of illegal employment going on, most likely benefit fraud, most likely people using fake identification. And so that case has terminated into a criminal search warrant, and we're hopeful that it will continue to go. And what we're trying to do is take the illegal work, that magnet that brings people to the country at times, we're trying to take that out of the hands. And so we're grateful what HSI Dallas did in this case.
Ron Vitelli, you have a huge job to do, and we appreciate you taking a minute to join us this morning and tell us what's going on. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks a lot.